Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about attacking strategy. Now this is one of the less concrete ideas, but it's also something that I excel at and I think I can, give some good advice on for pretty much everybody. Something you're going to be able to take away from this. Now for this, I'm going to discuss some types of attackers, what you want to look for in attackers, the way I go about things, and how you can use your bands to improve your attack. So now, to get it started, I already talked about how you can use your bands to improve your attack in the band strategy video, but I think this is super important. If you want to go for a nuke heavy deck, your bands are such a valuable tool, especially if you have strong nukes already. For banning defenders, it really can just let you increase the strength of your nukes by a whole lot. I talked about this more in the band strategy video. I don't want to, repeat myself too much. I highly recommend watching that. It's a really effective way to increase the strength of your attacking deck, especially if you don't have the perfect roster for everything. It's a very effective way to, get a nuke deck with what you have. Now, first off, I want to talk about the difference between general nukes and specific counters. It's kind of loose definition, and, what a champion is technically capable of is a lot less important than what you're actually using them for. For example, someone like Nimrod is capable of nuking a lot of stuff, but I have him listed as a counter for my own deck, because I pretty much only use him against mutants and as a last resort type of thing. But for a lot of other people, he's a general nuke for them. So if someone is, a general nuke for you, then list them as a general nuke. If you're, a lot of champions that technically are general nukes might be counters for you if you're only using them for that specific purpose. And yeah, let's get into this. Now, with bans, this is one way I've mentioned with the bans to limit the amount of counters that you need in your deck. Using bans to do that, as I've already mentioned, is a very effective way to lean heavily into general nukes. And that's one of the major building blocks of how my deck is able to be so lopsided and still be strong. And yeah, let's get into a few different types of nukes. As far as nukes go, the obvious separator, first of all, is the difference between RNG nukes and reliable nukes. So as far as RNG nukes go, they have a place, for sure. Your RNG nukes, your Archangels, your Spider-Hams, your Scorpions, your Hyperions, they definitely have a place, but I think RNG nukes lose a lot of value with their RNG. They have an extremely high ceiling, but one of the things that's important if you're going for a nuke heavy deck is a lot of these rounds are going to be super close. And RNG nukes, when a round is super close, you really need to get those perfect RNG scores. And, a champion might not have a very low floor, like a Hyperion, an Archangel, a Scorpion, their floor is still really, really solid, but if you are going for a nuke deck, you need your floor to still be really, really good to be able to reliably win rounds with. So someone like an Archangel, Hyperion, Scorpion, someone like this plays a lot less into a nuke deck. They can be extremely strong attackers, good Hail Marys, good reliable champions to have in your deck, but relying on them as your main attackers, I would not recommend, because they can lose important rounds for you when you need to win a round. There's definitely a different level between RNG nukes. Someone like Jugs or Archangel is certainly a lot more reliable than a Spider-Ham. But all RNG nukes, to an extent, there's going to be enough lack of reliability to bite you in the ass, especially when it really matters. And limiting this as much as possible can be pretty huge. You are not going to be able to completely avoid it, as always, in this game. So much is based around RNG, both in terms of, getting proper matchups and, just getting good AI or crits when it's important. But limiting that as much as you can help a lot for reliability. Now, for reliable nukes, there's, it's kind of a vague description, but just the nukes that are generally going to almost always do well. These are the main champs that I like to rely on as my attackers. A lot of this comes with the versatility of these. That's one of the things that separates, normal nukes and reliable nukes, I would say, is the versatility that you get. Someone like Torch is a fantastic nuke, but, if I get him in my first pick, I'm not always going to pick Torch. Because, he is someone that can absolutely be screwed over by a draft. Whereas, if I get a Stealthy or a Sunspot or a Surfer or a CGR or an Omega or something like that, I'm almost always going to take that in the first pick because they will almost always have some value. And this is a fairly simple idea, so I don't think I need to explain too much, but just going for the versatile and really reliable nukes can go a long way in just meaning you don't get stuck in a place where you cannot nuke a fight. And again, a fairly simple idea, but I think it's really important to keep in mind, so I feel important to mention that. And now, the main thing that's really important when deciding which nukes of yours you need to be drafting is really the opponent's deck. Seeing which problems they have, which fights they have, how much they can stop your attackers. You don't get to see that much in the ban phase and the drafting phase, but, it's important to keep that in mind, pick out the obvious ones, and keep those in mind for when you're drafting. If you're noticing, this person, they don't have many techs, they don't have many fights I would use CGR on, maybe draft a Stealthy or a Surfer or a Sunspot instead of that CGR. And keeping that in mind can go a long way. And also, if it's against, someone you've matched a lot, once you get to the higher levels, a lot of your matches are going to be repeated matches against people that you know well. Just keeping in mind what defenders they're generally picking can help a lot with this. Just keeping a mental note of that goes a long way. Now, one of the most important things with attacking strategy is knowing how to maximize the damage of your nukes. Of course, I talk about this more in the playstyle, but it really goes a long way for, using nukes in matchups that are generally quite bad for them. Fully understanding a champion's damage and a champion's rotation means you may be able to work around matchups that are bad for them. For example, a champion like Sunspot, he's not a counter to Man-Thing, he's not a counter to Hulkling, but due to the way his damage and his kit works, you can then stretch someone like Sunspot to being an extremely good option for Man-Thing. I've got it down in 39 seconds with a big health pool, and an extremely good option for Hulkling. I've got it down in 31 seconds. And learning exactly how a champion's damage functions, and then just practicing stretching that against a bunch of different matchups is very important. That's the nice thing with BGs, is that you can practice so much against all these weird matchups that you want to try out. Because, losing one round doesn't matter all that much. The value you get from practicing some matchup is going to be way bigger than the slight point difference or whatever that happens from losing that round. And being able to just practice a lot both in friendlies or your energy matches against all types of weird matchups can really help. And understanding, how your champion gets their damage can really help stretch them to fights where, it may seem like they wouldn't be able to work. And this is the fundamental thing with BGs. A lot of the matchups you're going to be doing are kind of weird matchups. And it seems like, your option would generally not work. But by just completely understanding how they get their damage and how you can practice that is just a massive difference. And of course, a lot of this comes with playstyle and rotations and all of that. But just practice those weird matchups. That's the fundamental thing. It's just practicing weird matchups. It's going to go a long way. I think that's, generally one of the things that separates me with, how good my nuke deck is I practice a lot for those weird matchups, both in friendlies and just in my regular matchups. I generally try to avoid getting into a habit of just only doing fights I'm comfortable with, and try more out of the box stuff, and that can go a huge way in just making you almost always able to nuke something. And yeah, that's the basic principles for this. There's a lot of nuance to all of this, of course. I can only give the building blocks in these short videos, but I hope you guys are able to take these ideas and use them to fit your roster and to fit your playstyle and how you want to advance in BGs. That's all for this video. Take care, guys. And real quick, I just realized after watching this back, I forgot to include something, but one of the other essential things with going for a nuke deck is understanding how your nukes can be used defensively. This kind of feeds into the two-way part, but these champs aren't necessarily two ways that you're making work defensively. But understanding how your champions work defensively can go a long way as well. I've had a lot of success using champions like Omega Red, CGR, Guardian, Hulkling, all of these champs that, just have tiny little defensive elements that can work for them, can make them kind of function as pseudo two-ways. And the nice thing about this is it allows you to draft these nukes and have like 5 or 6 nukes in your draft and not have to worry about that lack of defenders quite as much, and just make your attack kind of unstoppable doing that. And it's a really effective way to keep that reliability up, is understanding how your nukes can function defensively. And yeah, that's all for this. I just added that in after I realized watching back.